Merry Christmas, everybody. Just kidding, I don't even know why I have that. It's February. I don't know why that's still up. Hope you are having a great day today. We are interviewing Matthew NYQUIST, professor. He's my professor. He teaches Intro to Mass Media at Washburn, and he's also I guess he's still part-time as a film director, and so he worked in Hollywood as a full-time film director for 7 years, and so I'm super excited to interview him today, just to kind of see what that's like, what that career is like, and excited to add this to a repertoire of That's Interesting. So follow me along as we interview him today, and let's get into it. So I'll probably just ask you a few questions, and then you can kind of just elaborate on those questions. Right here I have like 5 or 6 questions written down. This is the first one I've ever done, so I'm a little bit nervous, but
Oh, you'll do great. I remember my first interview. The way I got into the movie business and everything started with podcasts and interviewing people. I guess I could talk about it on the thing, but
yeah.
But I totally get being nervous, especially for your first one.
All right. Well, welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is Professor NYQUIST. Thanks for coming on today. How are you doing?
You're very welcome. Doing great.
Good to hear. Thanks for agreeing to do the interview. I'm excited to kind of dive into what we have here. So
my pleasure.
So why don't you kind of tell everyone what you did and how long you did it for?
Gotcha. So I guess I'll start kind of at the beginning. It was kind of a confluence of a few different things, but growing up, I was always absolutely addicted to movies and obsessed with movies. Ghostbusters in the background, because that was my very first favorite movie. I used to watch it over and over and over and over again and try to figure out how they did things and why things worked. And I see that as kind of my introduction into me being weird about movies, because my friends were like, why the heck are you watching the same scene over and over again? Same movie over and over again, for that matter. So I started kind of looking into the fact that there are actually people that are making these things, and eventually kind of came to look at USC Film School, because it seemed like a lot of the folks that were involved in movie business, if they went to school, that's where they went. Also have always been really interested in video games, and now that they're very similar, now the businesses are very similar and connected. So in college and undergrad at KU, I started doing this podcast with a friend. And this was back in the dark ages, before podcasts, before the iPod existed.
Okay.
So we called it an internet radio show. But we just did it for fun. We didn't think anyone was going to listen. But we kind of were young and immature and just joking about things. And so everyone was playing Halo, the first Halo at the time.
Okay, right.
Which we were playing it too. But because we're young and dumb, we decided to make fun of it a lot. And so we were bashing it and making fun of it and saying terrible things about it. And after a couple of these, I got this email with a very detailed point-by-point breakdown of no, you're wrong about this. And the frame rate's not really bad at this point and all these really specific things. And so after about 3 of those emails, I wrote back, and Bungie made Halo at the time. And I was like, Do you work for Bungie? What's the deal? We wrote back. I said, yeah, actually I do.
Oh, wow.
So I was incredibly embarrassed, because we were making fun of this thing they were working, their ass off on. And and we had no idea that anyone would ever hear it. I ended up apologizing to him and kind of explaining that we were just kind of having fun. And then we actually did play Halo and like it. It ended up turning into a really good friendship. They ended up inviting us to Microsoft, which Bungie was on the Microsoft campus at that time, to see Halo. We saw Halo 2 a year and a half before it came out. And we got to see, it was kind of I don't know. I can't say this for sure. I'm pretty sure it was the early stages of Destiny. So that was kind of our first professional thing. And then we did the first that I was aware of Halo 2 interview with him. We did it live through internet radio services. And then we interviewed the Penny Arcade guys, who at the time were just starting to blow up. They're the ones that run PAX, the PAX conference now, and did that interview. And we just ended up getting a lot of people listening. And again, this is before YouTube or any of that stuff. So we just have a website where people are going to and downloading it.
Interesting.
The numbers keep growing and growing and growing. And I start figuring out what I'm going to do after undergrad. And we're making money on the site, and that's going well, but still really wanting to pursue movies. And so I get my application to USC together. They only accept 2% of applicants. So I really didn't think I had any chance of getting in.
Right.
It's the #1 film school in the world. And Kevin Feige that runs all the Marvel stuff. Like he got in his 6th attempt.
Wow.
And so it's just I had no conception that I would actually get in. So while I was kind of preparing to do the video game stuff as a career, while also applying for USC and using all the interviews, and we did a bunch of it, kind of like you did a lot of video content and stuff like that for the site, and used that for my portfolio.
Okay.
And so I applied in, I think, October, and didn't hear anything. It's coming down to March and April, didn't hear anything. So I just assumed I didn't get in. And then I get in like May, I think, I get a package in the mail from USC that I was accepted. And I was really surprised because you're supposed to have to do like an interview, and somehow I didn't have to do an interview. I have no idea why. But so I got accepted, and I moved out there to Los Angeles, and USC Film School from the first week. I mean, they had like Tom Hanks and Gary Sinise and the writer and director of Forrest Gump, and we like did that. And they're just constantly kind of thrusting you into the industry. So you kind of have to be a part of it. So after that, I did USC, and I did stuff at Warner Brothers Studios. I worked for Fred Roos. Fred Roos was he's Academy Award winning producer. He won his Academy Award for Godfather Part 2. He actually produced the very first Star Wars movie.
Oh, wow.
And he discovered like Harrison Ford. He told me this story when I interviewed with him. Harrison Ford was his carpenter. And
no way.
He told George Lucas to put him in American Graffiti. So he was in American Graffiti. And then he really wanted him to be in Star Wars, but George Lucas wanted all new people. Harrison Ford actually recently told this story in an interview, which was kind of cool to hear him talk about Fred, because I'd heard it from Fred's point of view. But Fred told George, we got a carpentry project here. Come down to Francis Ford Coppola's house, who was, of course, director of The Godfather.
Right.
And they were casting for Star Wars. And so they were bringing in all these different people for Han Solo. And Fred's kind of plan was, this is how I'm going to get Harrison to get to read for Han Solo. So according to Harrison Ford, reading for every actor between that age group in Hollywood, Fred kind of snuck Harrison in there, and then also had Harrison read for like all the Lukes, like as the opposite as Han Solo. And got George Lucas to that. Okay, obviously Harrison Ford's the guy for this role.
Wow, that's crazy.
I was really blown away, and that the whole experience with him was amazing. He shared an office with Warren Beatty, which is probably before your time, but he was a really big movie star for quite a while. And he just like Jack Nicholson was like his neighbor on Mulholland Drive, just working on projects with him. And my job specifically with him was I was in the story department. So I would be the one getting queries from screenwriters, figure out which scripts to bring in, and then ultimately which scripts to suggest to him that he produce.
Okay.
Kind of managing all the communication from the office too.
Okay.
So I was talking to people every day that I'd been growing up watching in the movies. Rocky, I know it's old.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Rocky's one of my favorite movies of all time. I was talking to this woman about this project, and I hang up the phone, and Fred comes in. He goes, Do you know who that was? I go, yeah. She said her name was Talia. And he goes, yeah, Talia Shire. That was Adrian. You just talked to Adrian.
Goodness.
So I was like,
oh my goodness.
But it was just so constant there, because he was known for actors, because he, like with The Godfather, he cast Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, these actors who weren't big yet. And he had to fight for them to get those roles, because the studios were not in support of that, because they didn't think they fit the roles.
Yeah.
So I was dealing with lots of actors and things like that. So I was in the producing side. I directed a TV pilot called The Gamer, and then I did a lot of sound work. Sound work's a really great way, especially when you're starting out, to make good money. And so I did a lot of freelance sound work, and I also worked at a place called Dane Tracks that was run by Dane Davis. He won his Academy Award for sound designing The Matrix. And so I just learned a ton from him. About that side of things. So there's quite a bit more, but that's a short basic version of all that.
That's great. And so how long in total did you have to go to college to kind of get into this career?
So I was at KU for actually in school for about 4 years. I took a semester off to really focus on growing the website.
Okay.
So I think it was like 4.5 years if you count the semester off.
Okay.
At USC, it's a 3-year program. So I was there for 3 years.
Okay. So about 7 in total between KU and then USC.
Yeah, and then in Los Angeles, I was there for a little over 7 years.
Gotcha.
Total.
And so who was your kind of like favorite to work with, or like most famous actor, I guess you could say, or your favorite actor to work with?
One of my favorite things that happened was actually my first weekend in LA. So my cousin, Kristen Burke, I was talking to her all this time, and she was really kind of the main inspiration for me, because I was talking to her about like, is this actually a practical career? Is this something
Right.
that you could actually do? She'd worked in the business as a costume designer since 1990, and then now she's a director. So she had a lot of insight. So anyway, I talked to her for several years before going out there. So my first weekend out there, she goes, "All right, let's go and I'll show you. We'll go to a bar." And so we went to this bar, and I sit down, and she calls or texts and goes, "I'm going to be just a couple minutes late, but my friend Ryan's going to be there." So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I look up, and like Ryan Gosling's walking over to me, and he's like, "Hey, are you Matt? Are you Kristen's cousin?" I was
Oh
like,
my goodness.
"Yeah, I'm Matt." And then Rachel McAdams was there too. And
Wow.
Kristen had told them like all about me. So there's all these people that I knew,
Right.
She's best friends with Amy Adams, because they kind
Okay.
of started in the business together. So Amy
Right.
is there, who's just a wonderful, wonderful person. And there was probably forgetting a few, but that was just a mind blowing experience for my first weekend. But you really start to, it becomes part of the business. Not that it ever isn't amazing, but
Right.
those are the people you're working with, and you can't treat them like a fan. You have to work with them. Getting to talk to Steven Spielberg was probably my favorite thing.
Okay. Wow. That's great. I'm sure that was kind of, all came at once whenever your first weekend in LA and you have these multiple famous actors coming up and talking to you. So
yeah, it was really bizarre.
Great. Do you ever get to go back to LA or ever get to see any of these people very often?
No, I still work on projects. I'm working on a project right now, actually. And then, I was actually there last week, and I saw my cousin Kristen, a few other friends of mine. One friend of mine just is doing really, really well. He just sold a couple scripts. And so I still try to keep my toes in there, because it's just a very unique industry, and I love operating in it. I came back to Kansas because both my parents got cancer, and they're in remission now. So it's fine.
Okay. Yeah,
but I came back to kind of help them out and, be around for family. And that's why I'm here, is for family. But especially now with the way the world's working with Zoom and everything, it's less important to be out there than it used to be. I can still keep all my contacts out there. And, I still talk to Fred. I just talked to him a month or two ago. I bring students out to Hollywood. And last time I went out there, Dane gave us a drive-on pass to Warner Brothers and a behind-the-scenes tour of the studio. And we got to see him working on stuff. And then I have people, like I had Rick Carter, the guy that production designed like Star Wars 7 and 9 and all the Jurassic Park movies and most of Spielberg stuff and Avatar. I had him speak to my advanced production class last spring.
Okay.
And it's important to me because I grew up in Kansas. I grew up in a town of 3,000 people in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Working in the movie business just seemed like nuts, and people don't understand it. Trying to bring that information that I learned out there to Kansas kids and like show them that it is, an actual career.
It's feasible, possible.
It's feasible as long as you work hard and you own your craft. And the film industry actually employs more people than some traditional careers like farming and mining and stuff that you would. So there's more jobs than people think.
Yeah. It seems so, like from someone from the outside, it seems so not small, but it seems like there's not as many opportunities as there may be, like you just said. So I can understand why people would think like that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's gotten better. If you just look at like Hollywood movies that go to the theater, there's only a few every year. But now with Netflix, all of the different streaming services and all that, there's way, way, way more content being made. I was talking to my friend, and he was saying, he felt terrible, but after COVID hit, it was his most successful time because there was just so much content in demand, especially as a writer. It was just, there's The theatrical business right now is not doing so well, but
Okay.
actual content being made and everything is doing
Right.
pretty well.
For sure.
There's always people from SC. I mean, one of my classmates was Ryan Coogler, and he directed Black Panther and
Okay. Gotcha.
big Marvel movie, and he did
Right.
Creed with Sylvester
wow.
Stallone.
Yep.
He produced Judas and the Black Messiah. He's doing exceptionally well, and like this year there was 7 USC alum nominated for Academy Awards. So just kind of staying in that world and using that for the benefit of students here while
Right.
still getting to work on projects and that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
for sure. Yeah, that sounds like a blast. Being
It's
able
fun.
to do both at the same time, and you know, bring in information back.
I'm extraordinarily lucky. I
Yeah.
still don't know how I got in or how I did what I did.
It's crazy to even, I remember at the beginning of the semester when we were, you know, the first day we were in class or whatever, and you said that used to be in Hollywood and as a filmmaker and things. And it just blew my mind because it's like, you know, especially being in Kansas, you don't hear about that ever. You think those people are so, you know, untouchable.
Yeah,
so
they're real people.
Right.
And that's the most important thing. First step that's most important to learn is that they're real people. And have you seen Napoleon Dynamite? I know it's really old now.
That's one of my favorite movies.
So that guy made that movie first as a short in his hometown of like 5,000 people in Idaho.
Okay.
And John Heder just happened to be an actor there that he cast. And he used that to raise money to make the feature. But he made Napoleon Dynamite in his hometown.
That's crazy.
You know that guy that's like cleaning his gun and he's gonna shoot the cow.
Yep.
He's like that, like his actual neighbor.
Oh wow.
And he shot in his actual high school, and you know it's kind of an interesting story. And he's of course out there now, but there's a voice to people that are in the Midwest that is also important. If people can pursue that and tell their stories, that's a good idea too.
For sure.
There's a video on YouTube. There was a friend of his doing like a behind the scenes of when it got accepted to Sundance, and he's like super nervous before it gets shown, as if anyone's gonna like it or not.
Right.
And then it went over really well, obviously. But just being terrified, and that's always terrifying to show your work to people. But
for sure. So another question I would have is, what would be your best advice to someone who wants to go into this career that may not have, you know, a lot of connections or something along those lines?
It's I had Sev Ohanian speak to our WFA group last summer, and I went to SC with him, but his big piece of advice, and I agree with it completely, is it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
Okay.
And what that means is getting your work out there. So whether that's on YouTube or going the more traditional route with film festivals, but it's making work that's good and then getting it out there. And you can do that with technology the way it is now. It's never been easier to make a movie. So you can make movies and get them out there. And really that's the most important thing, is to do it. And you're not going to be perfect to start out with, but the more you do it, the better you're going to get. If you look at a lot of the successful filmmakers, that's what they've always done. I mean, Steven Spielberg has all these movies he made like as a little kid, and he just kept doing it. And you know, I've been making movies since I was like 5. These, hilarious weird movies that I made when I was a little kid. But that's it. You just gotta, and that's with any media. You just gotta do it and push through. And if you're good at it, someone will notice. I mean, that's the thing, is the people that are selling this media are always on the lookout for things that they can sell. So if you have something sellable that they think that they can get out there, you know, it's just a matter of getting yourself out there for them to be able to find you.
So basically just kind of keep working at it, get your stuff out there, network a little bit.
Yep. And be on social media. You have to do that personal branding and networking that you have to do with pretty much every career now, and really get to know the business. Watch tons of movies, even ones that you don't necessarily like. Understand how the business works so that when you do have something to sell and you go into a meeting with someone, you know the language they're using when they're trying to buy your stuff, so you don't get taken. But you know, have a working knowledge of the business that you're going into, because at the end of the day, it is a business. You know, it's a business that's unlike any other business except for drugs and sports. So like pharmaceutical companies will put billions of dollars into a drug, never knowing if it's actually going to be marketable. Sports, they'll draft a rookie and pay him tons of money and he'll get endorsements and he may never pan out.
Right.
Movies are the same way. There is no 100% formula to pick a movie. I mean, the most important aspect is getting like a named actor, and they're doing smaller movies now. So if you have a good script and you can get it to them, can I tell a quick story about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I ran into this director at Photochem, which now they do other things, but back in the day would do like film processing. And he was talking about how he got his start, didn't know anybody, and this was in like the 90s, but he had this little script about differently abled boy buying a puppy, and he goes to the pet store. He sees that there's a puppy in the back, and the store owner goes, "Oh, you don't want that one." But he goes back, and the dog has a similar like issue with his leg that the boy does, and that's the one he ends up getting. So he ends up faxing that script to all sorts of movie stars and all sorts of people just blindly. And he gets a call from Jack Lemmon. I don't know if Jack Lemmon was this huge movie star. He was in Grumpy Old Men when he was older, but he was in movies like Marilyn Monroe, and he was a big deal. And so he gets a call, and it's like, "Hey, this is Jack Lemmon. I read your script. I really liked it. I'd love to play the part of the pet store owner." And he goes, "Well, I can't pay you, right? This is like a nothing movie that I'm just making, to try to launch myself." And he goes, "Oh yeah, right. I know. I just want to do it." So he hangs up, and then Martin Sheen calls, Charlie Sheen's father, who's also a huge actor. Yeah, he actually has to turn down Martin Sheen because he's already cast the part.
Wow.
But due to his connection to Jack Lemmon, he gets to use the back lot at Paramount and for free, and they dress it for him. And he gets a famous composer. And just that one step of getting someone like Jack Lemmon, just no money, just putting yourself out there. Yeah. He was able to get this movie made, and launched his career as a director just by doing that. And as long as you're working hard, and it is, it's just like any other job, there's hard work involved, and you own your craft and you don't give up, you have a really good shot.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I think, I don't know, a lot of people who want to, get out there big like that, get a little bit intimidated by, the people who already have connections or kind of grew up in that. And so I think that's really good advice for those people.
It is. I mean, it's not easy. It's not, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Right. Exactly.
But you'll also see people with connections that have difficulty. I mean, it's not publicized, but you'll find like famous actor children that are having difficulty. And I find a lot of the people that have difficulty, and it might not be all, but I find a lot of people that have difficulty don't understand that it's going to be hard work. Right. It is going to be putting in hours, and, just like any other job, it's not a quick path to fame or anything. That's that is very rare. Most of the people that, like Fred, the producer I worked for, he started in the mail room at MGM. Like he was sorting mail at MGM Studios. Yeah. And then he worked his way up. As long as you can, they call it pay your dues, right. And work up, and you have a good shot.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, hey, Dave. I'm almost done, sweetie. I'll be right over there in a second, okay? Oh, here, the button's right here. There you go, babe. I'm almost done. I'll be right over there in just a second, okay? Sorry.
No worries at all. So I think that's all I have for you. Is there anything else that you wanted to say, or kind of?
No, I don't think so. No, I think that's good. To you, good luck to you, and keep doing this sort of thing, because this is the perfect type of thing to build your network. You never know who you're going to interview, and someone out there sees it, and you can launch careers that way. So
for sure,
I'm proud of you for doing that.
Oh, I appreciate that, and thank you for being willing to come on and talk. And it was super interesting to kind of hear. I was really excited to interview you just to hear what it was like to be out in Hollywood and to see what you do. So
fun, hard work, and sometimes stressful, but
for sure. Right, exactly. Well, again, thanks for coming on, and
see you later.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye.